The first lesson is from Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. The hand of the Lord came upon me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me down in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me all around them. There were very many lying in the valley, and they were very dry. He said to me, Mortal, can these bones live? I answered, O Lord God, you know. Then he said to me, Prophesy to these bones, and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord God to these bones, I will cause breath to enter you, and you shall live. I will lay sinews on you, and will cause flesh to come upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live, and you shall know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I had been commanded, and as I prophesied, suddenly there was a noise, a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to its bone. I looked, and there were sinews on them, and flesh had come upon them, and skin had covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, mortal, and say to the breath, Thus says the Lord God, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live. I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and stood on their feet, a vast multitude. Then he said to me, Mortal, these bones are the whole house of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is lost. We are cut off completely. Therefore prophesy, and say to them, Thus says the Lord God, I am going to open your graves, and bring you up from your graves, O my people, and I will bring you back to the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord when I open your graves, and bring you up from your graves, O my people. I will put my spirit within you, and you shall live, and I will place you on your own soil. Then you shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken and will act, says the Lord. Here ends the first lesson. The psalm today is Psalm 130. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord. My soul waits, and in his word I hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is he who will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. Here ends the psalm. The second lesson is from Romans, the 8th chapter. To set the mind on flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For this reason, the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, indeed it cannot. And those who are in the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh, you are in the Spirit, since the Spirit of God dwells in you. Anyone who does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, though the body is dead because of sin, the Spirit is life because of righteousness. If the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who has raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his Spirit that dwells in you. Here ends the second lesson.
Holy Gospel according to St. John, beginning the 11th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sister sent a message to Jesus, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, Let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now trying to stone you, and you're going to go there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them. After saying this, he told them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right. Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. For your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go that we may die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, that will come into the world. The gospel of our Lord for this day. Praise to you, Lord Christ. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart always be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. On the continent of Europe, in May of 1664, it claimed its first few victims. By May of next year, 600 people had died. By June of 1665, the number of deaths had risen to 6,000. 1 month later, the death toll was 17,000. Then in August of 1665, 31,000 people had died. People responded by fleeing the city of London like rats from a sinking ship. And in this way, the disease spread across Europe. By the time it was over, more than 70,000 people had died. Now, this great plague was called the Black Death. And it was called the Black Death for 2 reasons. First, the victims had large black splotches across their body. Second, it was because of the darkness of ignorance that surrounded the cause of this disease. Many people of that day thought the plague was caused by the soot in the air that smothered the city of London. Today we of course know that it was carried not by the air, but by fleas carried on the backs of rats, possibly from the ships that came from the country of China. But in those days, people believed that this disease was caused by polluted air. So the physicians of the day devised a strange ritual to bring about a cure. They would take the people stricken with this disease outside to a rose garden. There the patients would form a circle around the roses, holding hands. Then they would walk around the circle, breathing in the fragrance of the blossoms. They believed that this would flush the disease from their lungs. Doctors thought that the fragrant air of the roses would replace the diseased air. The physicians would also stuff rose petals in their pockets. As the physicians made house calls, they would sprinkle those rose petals around the sick as they lay in bed. For those near death, the doctors would burn the rose petals so the victims could breathe the ashes, hoping this would make them sneeze, and this way would flush out the old, diseased air. Of course, none of these superstitious rituals worked. People with the plague died. Tens of thousands of them died. This ritual gave birth to a rhyme to the man who pushed the death cart to the mass graves. As the man who loaded the bodies on the cart on his way to the pit, he could be heard chanting these words: "Ring around the roses, a pocket full of posies. Ashes to ashes, we all fall down." It is strange today that what we know as an innocent nursery rhyme would begin in such a way. Yet the truth in that one line is as real for us in the 21st century as it was in the 17th century. For we still all fall down. Each of us will eventually succumb to the inescapable plague known as death. There's no axiom that goes like this. There are only 2 certainties in life: death and taxes. But when you think about it, this familiar cliche is not totally accurate. As you should know, especially at this time, every year with the right deductions and a good accountant, many people have managed to avoid paying any taxes at all. And folks, I'm going to tell you something. Everyone will face death. There are no exceptions. The writer of the book of Ecclesiastes tells us in chapter 7, verse 2, "It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of everyone, and the living will lay it to heart. So we all fall down. From the book of Genesis to the book of Revelation, we are told the plague of death. The sad fact is that all of humanity has this disease that causes death. Sin has brought death upon each and every one of us. We're all stricken with this disease. In a very real sense, each and every one of us is terminally ill. Now, some of you may have heard me say that there's an expiration date stamped on all of us. Only God knows that day and hour. Now, that's not a pleasant thought, is it? And because it is unpleasant, we do all that we can to avoid even thinking about it. Billy Graham once said that we live in a death-denying society, and we do. We spend billions of dollars on creams and lotions that promise to slow the aging process. Think about this. Most of us exercise regularly, watch what we eat and drink to prolong our life, hoping to slow down the aging process. A number of years ago, I saw this fellow. You could tell that he was a bodybuilder. This guy was cut. I mean, this guy was built. This guy was in great shape. But on his t-shirt were these words: eat right, stay fit, die anyway. We even deny immortality with jokes like Woody Allen, who once said, "It's not that I'm afraid to die, it's just that I don't want to be there when it happens." When the life of a loved one ends, we don't say that he or she died. Instead, we usually say that he or she passed away, or that he or she is no longer with us. Even the writers of classic literature did this. Tennyson referred to death as crossing the bar. Bryan dubbed it a dreamless sleep. Now, why do we do this? Why is this something we avoid like the plague? We act this way because we fear death. We run from it, just like those panicking people ran from the city of London. The main reason we fear death is because it is an unknown. We can't study death or observe it or try it out to see how it feels. No, from our earthly perspective, we can't possibly understand all that we want to know about death. Now, in our gospel story for today, Jesus had a home away from home. It was the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. These three siblings became a family to him. They lived in the village of Bethany, just located beyond the Mount of Olives. Well, Lazarus became very sick, and his sisters sent for their friend Jesus, the only one they knew who had the power to heal the sick. When this happened, Jesus is with his disciples in an area called Perea. This was about a 2-day journey from Bethany, so the sisters sent a messenger to Jesus. Now, we should note that in their message to Jesus, Mary and Martha didn't ask Jesus to come to their aid. They just let him know of Lazarus' illness and hoped that Jesus would return to Bethany quickly. But surprisingly, Jesus didn't drop everything and hurry to their home. Instead, Jesus waited for 2 more days, saying that this sickness would not end in death, but that it would be used to glorify the Son of God and lead his followers into a deeper faith. When Jesus finally arrived in Bethany, he found that Lazarus had been dead and in the tomb for 4 days. Jesus knew his friend was already dead when he received the news from Bethany. Jesus wasn't cruelly waiting in order to allow Lazarus to suffer and to die so that he could make a point. No, Jesus never turned down someone who in faith asked for his help. But Lazarus was already dead when the messenger reached Jesus. So when Martha and Mary learned of Jesus' approach to Bethany, they came to him and had a similar question. Where were you? I think they implied in their question that it was Jesus' fault that Lazarus had died. No doubt these sisters were thinking, what took you so long? Here we were doing all we could without the power of God, and you stood away from us at a distance, and you waited and you delayed. Even though we notified you, you didn't come to help until now. Where were you when we were hurting? Have you ever stood at the graveside of someone that you love and asked that same question? Have you ever wondered where God was when you were grieving? Well, the answer is, he's right there by your side, hurting and grieving with you. Yes, hurting and grieving with you. Grieving for you in the pain that you're feeling, pain that comes from living in a sinful and fallen world. Where is God when it hurts? God is in you. He abides in you, not in the thing that hurts. And we see this fleshed out in how Jesus responds here to the pain of Mary and Martha, for he was moved by their grief, as if it were his own. In fact, the scriptures tell us that Jesus wept. Well, the Lord replied to this question by telling them that Lazarus would rise again. Martha said, of course he will rise again, as everyone will on the last day. In essence, she was saying, don't give me theological facts, Jesus. I know that my brother will rise again on the last day, thousands and thousands and thousands of years from now, but that's not good enough. I want him here, alive now. And then Jesus said to Martha, look at me. I have the power over death. I am the resurrection of life. He who believes in me, even though he dies, he will live. Jesus is saying, don't put your faith in theology, put your faith in me. Jesus didn't pause to teach her a short course of immortality. Jesus didn't offer an explanation of his claim. Jesus offered himself, and that was sufficient. So they took Jesus to the tomb. And once they got there, our Lord once again showed his empathy for his friends by weeping. Jesus knew that in that moment, Mary and Martha's tears would be turned to joy. But Lazarus was about to be called back in the presence of God. In spite of the sisters' warnings about the smell that would surely be coming from the tomb, since Lazarus had been dead in the tomb for 4 days, Jesus orders the tomb to be opened. And then after a prayer, Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. Now think about that. What an awesome experience. Lazarus had died. Lazarus was actually completely dead. The victim had been in the tomb for 4 days. And then in response to the command of Christ, Lazarus rose from the dead. He had come back to life. Now, in this I am statement from the mouth of Jesus and the miracle that followed, Jesus provided us with answers for 2 of the main questions that we have about death. And the first is this: is there life after death? And second, is there life before death? So is there life after death? Mankind has sought the answer to this question since the very first funeral. The oldest book of the Bible records that Job asked that question so long ago when he said, if mortals die, will they live again? That's the book of Job, chapter 14, verse 14. Well, since Jesus both said and proved, since he is the resurrection and life, then we know that the answer to this question is yes. Is it possible for us to experience life after death, before we're supposed to die? The answer, of course, is no. You see, we can't try out death like test driving a new car to see what death is like. But Jesus did. On Good Friday, we remember that Jesus died on the cross for our sins. Jesus experienced death, and then on that first day of the week, on that Sunday morning, God raised him in a resurrection. Now, some folks may doubt this and say that Jesus never really died on that first Good Friday. Well, folks, I'm here to tell you that Jesus did die on that cross. The Romans were very good at executing slaves, rebels, foreigners, and criminals on the cross. The Romans knew what they were doing when it came to killing. They had it down to a science. The Bible tells us that he died and rose again, conquering death. And the Bible also teaches that we will be resurrected as well when Christ Jesus returns to this world on the last day in power and in glory. So death is not the end for us. By God's grace through faith, we are saved. Yes, there is life after death. Christ Jesus, our Redeemer, has made this possible through his death and his resurrection. So, is there life before death? Well, Pastor, what do you mean? In John's Gospel, chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus said, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Tragically, there are many people in our world today who live their lives in which this world is all that there is, nothing else. For them, life is a treadmill with no purpose, no hope, and nothing more. They do not know Jesus Christ. They live their lives with really no purpose. It's more of an existence instead of really living. I'm going to share with you something that happened here just recently. Several weeks ago, I had planned to go up to Temple to the VA clinic to get my foot x-rayed because I've been in a lot of pain. I planned to leave on that Thursday morning. Well, something said to me, don't go to Temple. Instead, stay here. I thought I really needed to go, but something kept saying, don't go to Temple. I need you here. Okay, well, I'll just wait until tomorrow. I guess it was about 10:30, maybe quarter to 11. I saw this small white car pull up in the driveway right outside of my office window. I noticed a gentleman in his late 30s and a younger man get out of the car. They came in the building and then they came into my office. So I asked him if he needed any help, and he seemed to be very distraught. He said to me, my son and I are here, and I need to pray. Are you the pastor? He asked. I said, yes, I am. He said, I want to go to pray. So I said, follow me. So I led him and his son into the sanctuary, and I said, you can stay in here and pray as long as you need. I guess about 20 to 25 minutes later, he came into my office with tears streaming down his face. And he said, Pastor, I need to talk to you. as his son went out of the car. I said, okay, please sit down. He told me that he was tired of living a life in which he was ashamed of. He described his life as a dead end, and he had very little upbringing in the church. He said, Pastor, I don't know God, and I don't want to die without knowing Jesus Christ. Would you please baptize me? So I took him in the sanctuary, poured some water into our font, I prayed over the water, and I baptized him in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I made the sign of the cross on his forehead, and I said, you are marked and sealed as Christ's own forever. You are his child, as the tears were streaming down his face. I said, you belong to Christ. You are a new creation in Christ. The old self has died, and you are reborn, a child of God. You are precious in his sight. The man left. I don't know where he went, but I do know that he has been forgiven of his sins. He has been given the promise of abundant life and eternal life through the work of God's Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. You see, brothers and sisters in Christ, our lives in Christ are so real that you will refer to your life, the life you lived before as a dead end, as death. The crucified and resurrected Christ comes to us when we are defeated, knocked down, and beaten up by this world. When we are dead in our trespasses and in our sins, when we are dead to all the good that God provides for us. But through faith in Christ Jesus, who is the resurrection of life, we truly begin to live. We discover the purpose for which we were created, and that is to live a life that glorifies not ourselves, but gives glory to God our Father in heaven. So is there life after death? And is it possible to experience a meaningful life, whether long or short, before death? The answer is yes, a resounding yes, because the answer to those questions are found in the Christ of Easter, who is the resurrection and the life. Amen. Let's bow our heads. Let's go to our Lord in prayer. Lord God, you have given to each of us this precious gift of life. Help us to see that no matter how long or how short our time is in this world, that this life prepares us for our life to come with you in your eternal kingdom. Empower each of us in our daily lives to live as good and faithful witnesses of the gospel, so that those who see that this life is all that there is may instead see that through faith in Jesus Christ, who is the resurrection of life, may find life, abundant life, and eternal life. All this we humbly pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.